Welcome to the weekly worship service of the First Church in Boston, a Unitarian Universalist congregation in the Back Bay. First Church offers this broadcast each Sunday morning from 11 a.m. to noon here on 88.9 WRS. The Reverend Edmund Robinson is minister at First Church. His sermon for today is entitled Unconditional Love.
Good morning, and welcome to the First Church in Boston's worship service this 8th day of May, 2022, Mother's Day. I'm Edmund Robinson, the interim minister, continuing the worship tradition of this church, which dates back almost 400 years. We are the oldest church in Boston with the newest building. Our Paul Rudolph designed sanctuary in Boston's Back Bay is 50 years old, as we celebrated last week, and is now open for live worship after being closed for 6 weeks due to COVID. We also welcome those joining us live streaming from Facebook and those who are joining us on WERS FM 88.9, the radio station of Emerson College. We hope those joining off the premises will find the time to visit us in person some Sunday in the future when we can meet you. As I said, it is Mother's Day, and we'll start with this Mother's Day proclamation by Julia Ward Howe, one of the most popular authors of the 19th century. Arise then, women of this day. Arise, all women who have hearts, whether your baptism be that of water or of tears. Say firmly, we will not have great questions decided by irrelevant agencies. Our husbands shall not come to us reeking with carnage for caresses and applause. Our sons shall not be taken from us to unlearn all that we have been able to teach them of charity, mercy, and patience. We women of one country will be too tender of those of another country to allow our sons to be trained to injure theirs. From the bosom of the devastated earth, a voice goes up with our own. It says, disarm, disarm. The sword of murder is not the balance of justice. Blood does not wipe out dishonor, nor violence indicate possession. As men have often forsaken the plow and the anvil at the summons of war, let women now leave all that may be left of home for a great and earnest day of council. Let them meet first as women to bewail and commemorate the dead. Let them then solemnly take counsel with each other as the means whereby the great human family can live in peace, and each bearing after her own time the sacred impress, not of Caesar, but of God. Our opening hymn is number 8 from our Transylvanian brothers, the Mother Spirit, Father Spirit, and I'll remind you of our protocols for COVID is that we allow congregational singing. You may rise as you wish or are able, but sing from behind the mask, please, and the choir will lead us. Number 8, Mother Spirit, Father Spirit.
Father Spirit,
I'm Craig Hildreth, your announcer and broadcast engineer. The music director at First Church is Gigi Mitchell Velasco, and the video technician is Masha Stepanova. Today's prelude was Slumber My Darling by Stephen Collins Foster. The postlude will be God Bless the Child by Billie Holiday and Arthur Herzog Jr. Also, both pieces performed and arranged by Jacqueline Schwab.
You are the light of the world. A city built on a hill cannot be hid. No one, after lighting a lamp, puts it under the bushel basket, but on the lampstand, and it gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others. Thank you, Pam. And now, if you will rise as you're able for the First Church Boston affirmation in your order of service. We say it in unison. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Thank you. Please be seated. We have only a few announcements. First of all, a great big thank you to everybody who helped with the 50th celebration last weekend. It was spectacular. I couldn't have been nicer any way that I can imagine it. And it's all due to the hard work of a bunch of people. I'm not going to give them everybody by name, but you know who you are. And Janine did a very good job of thanking you all in the e-news. So look for that. Secondly, there is no social justice meeting this month that would normally be at the end of coffee hour today, but it will be happening in June. We have a lot of things to talk about in social justice. Also, several of us have been saying we should have a big brainstorming session for what the last weekend taught us about being open to the community and being welcoming to the community, how to get people in here and interested in the church. If you're interested in that, keep an eye out. We're probably going to do a Zoom sometime in the next week that people can just jump on and give us their ideas and pull them all together. And now we have an anthem from Mozart.
You're listening to the worship service at First Church in Boston, Unitarian Universalist Congregation in the Back Bay. The anthem you just heard was Ave Verum Corpus by Mozart, with Mishima Kumara conducting.
Good morning. This is the responsive reading, number 715, Your Children, by Kahil Gibran. Your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. They come through you, but not from you. And though they are with you, yet they belong not to you. You may give them your love, but not your thoughts, for they have their own thoughts.
You may house their bodies, but not their souls.
For their souls dwell in the house of tomorrow, which you can visit, not even in your dreams. You may strive to be like them, but seek not to make them like you. For life goes not backward, nor tarries with yesterday. You are the bows from which your children, as living arrows, are sent forth. The archer sees the mark upon the path of the infinite, and bends you with might, that the arrows may go swift and far.
Let your bending in the archer's hand be for gladness.
I invite you now into a time of meditation and prayer. I invite you to relax in your pews and stretch out what may need to be stretched. Maybe you want to put your shoulders in your ears once or twice and let them drop. And enter into this moment, put aside plans and regrets and memories, for this moment will never come again quite like this. And since we're reflecting on Mother's Day, I'll read a poem by William Meredith called Parents. Parents. What it must be like to be an angel or a squirrel, we can imagine sooner. The last time we go to bed good, they are there, lying about darkness. They dandle us once too often, these friends who become our enemies. Suddenly one day, their juniors are as old as we yearn to be. They get wrinkles where it is better smooth, odd coughs and smells. It is grotesque how they go on loving us. We go on loving them. The effrontery, barely imaginable, of having caused us, and of how. Their lives, surely we can do better than that. This goes on for a long time. Everything they do is wrong, and the worst thing, they all do it, is to die, taking with them the last explanation, how we came out of the wet sea, or wherever they got us from, taking the last link of that chain with them. Father, mother, we cry, wrinkling to our uncomprehending children and grandchildren. Our sermon hymn is number 357, Bright Morning Stars, an old Appalachian song. You may remain seated for this. Thank you, everybody. That was beautiful, as was the Mozart. One day a mother came to a prison to see her erring but precious son. She told the warden how much she loved him. It did not matter what he had done. She did not bring parole or pardon. She brought no silver, no pomp nor style. It was a halo sent down from heaven, the sweetest gift, a mother's smile. Her boy had wandered far from the fireside, though she had pleaded with him each night. yet not a word did she ever utter to show her heartache. Her smile was bright. She did not bring parole or pardon. She brought no silver, no pomp or style. It was a halo sent down from heaven, the sweetest gift, a mother's smile. She left a smile you can remember. She's gone to heaven from heartaches free. The bars around you will never change her. You were her baby, and there will be. She did not bring parole or pardon. She brought no silver, no pomp nor style. It was a halo sent down from heaven, the sweetest gift, a mother's smile. It was a halo sent down from heaven, the sweetest gift, a mother's smile. Unconditional love. It's Mother's Day again. It's all over the newspapers, the TV, the internet. The florists are abloom in gold. The chocolatiers are pumping out profits. Hallmark cards are purveying gauzy sentiments. But why, you may wonder, do we want to talk about it in church? Well, for one thing, because the holiday got some of its early impetus from a proclamation put out by Julia Ward Howe, a Unitarian, who, after writing the Battle Hymn of the Republic, the most stirring martial song of the 19th century, decided to turn peace activist and proposed that all mothers meet for a council to decide how to turn swords into plowshares. But the more significant connection is that we talk in this place about love as the most important human value. But the word love is so abstract. In many ways, it's just another four-letter word. What do we mean? What does unconditional love look like in our real lives, the ones we are trying to live? Two categories of beings have been put forward as symbols of unconditional love: God and mothers. It is not surprising that the metaphor of God the parent has such a hold in our religious history, for where else in our worldly experience can we find anything approximating what that love might feel like than the love our actual parents might have bestowed on us? One of my earliest memories of childhood is from a playground in kindergarten. One of the other kids had said something nasty towards me. And all of a sudden, the warm universe of love in which I had lived to that point was shattered. I don't remember what was said or who said it. I just remember the emotional feeling of a burst bubble. The word unconditional really means no matter what. Who will love us no matter what? Who will love us like the mother in the song, where it did not matter what we had done? Who will love us sometimes when we can't even love ourselves? Each of us may give different answers to these questions, but some of us would answer with God, and perhaps more of us would answer with my mother. The divine metaphor, of course, puts motherhood on a pretty high pedestal, and it should not surprise us that many women today refuse to step onto that stage, either by refusing to become mothers or by refusing to allow any grandiose notions of motherhood to get in the way of how they do their job. In real life, in its gritty particulars, there are many different ways we approach motherhood, some with pleasure and some with pain. Each of us here has had a mother, but many of us are not equipped by plumbing to be mothers, and some of those of us who are so equipped may not have become mothers out of choice out of chance or necessity. Some of us have the sort of wonderful relations with our mothers, which is reflected in the sentimental cards and images and tweets and treats that we are awash in. Others of us will have had relations with our mothers that are more difficult. Many of us will relate emotionally to strong women in our lives who were not our biological mothers, aunts, grandmothers, nursemaids, older sisters, mentors. Some of us may have been raised by fathers who tried to be both mother and father to us. Some of us, our biological mothers, have actually given birth one or more times, and others of us have filled a maternal role for younger generations by way of adoption or foster parenting. Some of us relate to our pets with unconditional love, or feel the pets relating that way to us. The old bumper sticker says, "I wish I could be as good a person as my dog thinks I am." And some of us have lost children during our lifetimes, and for these, Mother's Day holds up the mirror of that loss. Motherhood, in short, is not all apple pie. At its best, it is about love, about nurturing the next generation and giving them what they need to survive and thrive in their lives. And since this role is so imbued with a gender perspective, and since I am male, there will be things I get wrong as I try to sort through these matters, and I hope that anyone who wishes to set me straight will see me at coffee hour, where I will welcome your corrections. But this year we have another dimension altogether in talking about motherhood. A draft opinion has been leaked from the United States Supreme Court, giving a strong indication that the court is now poised to do away with the right of abortion altogether. The first time in the history of the country that a personal constitutional right has been retracted by the court. That right, of course, gives to the woman bearing the fetus the choice to terminate a pregnancy or carry it to term. I suspect that the leaker chose the timing of the leak to coincide with Mother's Day, but whether or not that is true, the old issue of abortion has resurfaced in the center of our consciousness, and anything we say about motherhood needs to take that dimension into account. Let's return to Julia Ward Howe's proclamation. It is based on the strength of supposedly unconditional and universal love among women who bear and raise children. Several years after the Civil War's carnage and after the Franco-Prussian War in Europe, Howe thought that if only the mothers of the world could unite and realize the power of their mother love, they would realize that disputes need to be settled without violence. At the root of this idea is that of mother love, an unconditional loyalty to the child as natural as saving the child from falling into the water and drowning. It's a big irony that it was Julia Ward Howe who penned this stirring peace manifesto, because it was the same Julia Ward Howe that had stirred the martial spirit of the Union forces with her great battle hymn. And when she wrote her proclamation in 1870, the divisive wounds of the Civil War were far from over. That conflict had not only divided the nation, it divided the families of the nation. That war famously pitted brother against brother. But if the brother in blue is willing to kill his brother in gray, where does that leave the one mother who raised both of them and wants to love them both? So there's a problem with attributing unconditional love to all mothers. Sometimes the conditions under which mothers bear or raise children are stacked against love and support. When we think of human nature, we're apt to think of something like an inborn maternal instinct. We think that motherhood implies certain behaviors, and to depart from these behaviors is unnatural. We often hear that it is not natural for mothers to work, to feed their babies formula, to put their own interests or those of anyone else ahead of the baby. One scientist who's actually explored this is Sarah Blaffer Hrdy. That's H-R-D-Y, peculiar name, Sarah Blaffer Hrdy, an emeritus anthropologist at the University of California at Davis. She wrote a book called Mother Nature, A History of Mothers, Infants, and Natural Selection. And I had the pleasure of hearing her lecture at Star Island in 2000. Hrdy set out to look at the whole question of a maternal instinct, what it is, what it isn't, and how it might have evolved. Now, you would think that Darwinian evolution would tend to create a strong maternal instinct, and that this instinct would display at its strongest in animals such as humans when the young have the longest period of dependency. For those mothers who exhibited the greatest protective behavior to their young would be the ones whose young were most likely to survive and pass on the genes of the mother to succeeding generations. There's seemingly a scientific basis, in other words, to this particular aspect of the mommy myth. After all, haven't we all seen films on the Nature Channel of the mother bird faking a broken wing in order to draw the predator's attention away from her nest? Well, that is part of the story, but it's not the whole story by any means. Dr. Hrdy finds instances, both in animals and humans, of mothers outright killing their offspring, and many more of mothers leaving them to die of exposure or predators. It is true that nature has given higher animals powerful bonding mechanisms. The physiological engine that drives all this is the hormone called oxytocin. It is present during birth. In fact, the name oxytocin derives from two Greek words meaning rapid birth. But in humans, it really comes in with lactation a couple of days after birth. It is almost like an opiate, and it gives the mother a stimulated, pleasurable feeling during the nursing process. Oxytocin works sort of like the love potion number 9, or the magic potion in A Midsummer Night's Dreams. It causes the mother to fall in love with the first person she lays eyes on, which is the infant. A study of unwed mothers in a French convent showed that if mothers were to give up their children for adoption, they would do it in the day or two after birth. Once their milk started flowing, the bond was too strong. Infants, for their parts, are not passive during this period. They have evolved to be irresistible. They make eye contact with the mother and soon learn to smile to bring on the reciprocal behaviors from the mother that keep them fed and warm. Over evolutionary time, natural selection will favor those children who are attractive and have a strong ability to connect behaviorally with their mothers. We have evolved as creatures who derive deep emotional satisfaction from face-to-face interactions with others. That's some of what we suffer from in this COVID age. Nevertheless, as I said, instances of mothers outright killing their infants are found in the animal and human realms, and much more commonly among birds. Mothers arrange their egg laying so that some of the offspring will have a better chance of survival than others. The model which Dr. Hrdy maintains is everywhere in nature is not one of absolute altruism or protection of the offspring at any cost. It is one of finagling. Motherhood is not basically about instincts, it is about trade-offs. The mother may trade the survival of all of her brood for the survival of a few who might live to maturity, given scarce food resources. The mother bird lays the extra eggs on spec, so to speak. If food is plentiful, the whole brood will survive to maturity. If not, the firstborn will survive. Dr. Hrdy emphasizes that one of the strategies that a mother uses to figure out how to rear the children she bears is rearing assistants, of what Hrdy calls allo mothers. These are defined simply as anyone who helps take care of a child. They are folded into the child rearing process in humans and in animals. So she says evolution favors not the most altruistic mothers, but the ones most socially adept at arranging support for rearing the children. In brief, Dr. Hrdy maintains that science does not support a picture of a universal altruistic mother instinct. What does this mean for today's question, the impact of overruling Roe versus Wade, thus removing the right to choose to end a pregnancy? The Harvard Gazette, a newspaper of Harvard University, published a revealing interview with a bioethicist at Harvard Medical School named Louise King about the outlook on abortion providers. The interview began with the interviewer asking, Given the broad ethical issues in which abortion is usually framed, such as when life begins, the right to privacy, and freedom from governmental intrusions, how does a professional bioethicist look at it? Dr. King answered as follows, quote, "I framed the topic in the context of the patient in front of me. In other words, I look primarily to autonomy and beneficence in the context of doing good for the patient. That might mean upholding that person's choice not to proceed with what is still a very dangerous proposition, namely carrying a pregnancy to term and delivering. If someone says to me, I'm pregnant and do not wish to be pregnant for a multitude of reasons, I support that decision because the alternative of carrying to term is risky. I want to protect that person's bodily autonomy. From a reproductive justice standpoint, I want to support persons who have uteri, that's the plural of uterus, in making decisions about when they wish to have a family, how they want that to look, whether they want to have a family at all, in expressing their sexuality, and in all kinds of different things," unquote. So this bioethicist doctor's chief concern is the autonomy of the patient before her and beneficence, trying to do good for this patient. Notice that Dr. King uses the phrase persons who have uteri, which may sound peculiar, but if you look at it from the perspective of a trans person, the relevant concern is not that there are fixed biological categories of men and women. That's irrelevant. But what are the needs of this patient right here who would not be pregnant without a womb? Another thing to notice is that she makes her ethical determination based on the patient before her, what that patient actually wants, not on some societal notions of what that patient should want. So having delimited her ethical field of concern to the person who is seeking her medical advice, she then amplifies her answer to take into account the arguments of abortion opponents. Quote, "I don't believe that life begins at conception. Among the minority of people in this country who believe that's the case, some are vocal and aggressive in imposing that belief on others, which may happen with this upcoming decision. But quite a number of students that I meet who believe life begins at conception still don't believe that they have the right to impose that belief on others. To contextualize what we ask of persons with uteri when we make abortion illegal, it's helpful to compare instances where we could ask people to undergo very risky procedures to help others. For example, we don't demand that people give blood. It's not a big deal, and it could save lives every day. But we don't demand that anybody donate blood or bone marrow. We don't demand kidney donations, which are less risky than childbirth nowadays," end quote. Dr. King could also have mentioned here vaccinations against COVID-19. Opposition to getting vaccinations is usually based on personal autonomy, the idea that the government should not be allowed to force us to do anything with our bodies against our wills, even when the risk is low, even when the benefit to society is high. Dr. King continues, quote, "So we generally don't ask one human being to give so completely of themselves to another, but we do so when it's a pregnant person. That, I believe, does not comport with our ethics. But it also doesn't fully address the concerns of persons who believe life begins at conception. They come to these beliefs honestly, but I think they have to explore them more deeply and figure out whether, even if true, do they hold up to the point where we require somebody to have a forced pregnancy to term? I would say, within my understanding of ethics, no." Harvard ethicist. I agree with 90% of what Dr. King says. But I think the central question in the abortion debate is not when life begins, but when personhood begins. The hair on our heads, our fingernails and toenails, our bones are all living tissue, but no one would think of making it illegal to cut them off and discard them. A fetus is a potential person, but not yet a realized person in any sense. Unconditional love, like any other kind of love, seeks to focus on an object. For a wanted pregnancy, the period of gestation is filled with plans and expectations, as it should be. What will be his or her name? Will it look more like its mommy or its daddy? Will it be musical or practical, kind-hearted or self-absorbed? There's feverish speculation and impatience to get the show underway. These expectations create interest and attachment, but they do not create love until the loved person makes an appearance. But if conditions are different, there may be none of that. If the pregnant one already has 2 mouths to feed on the income from 3 part-time jobs, or a disabling mental condition, or suicidal ideation, or 1,000 other factors in this strange pandemic world, forcing the pregnancy to term through criminal prosecution may be a death sentence for the mother. As Khalil Gibran said about children in the reading Margaret did a few minutes ago, you may house their bodies, but not their souls. For their souls dwell in the house of tomorrow, which you cannot visit, not even in your dreams. So is a decision by the owner of a uterus to end a pregnancy, is that decision compatible with unconditional love? It may be. Remember that evolution's love potion number 9, oxytocin, does not kick in until 2 days after the birth. During the 9 months of the gestation, the uterus owner is emotionally free to make the decision best for all concerned. To achieve unconditional love, the conditions must fade into the background so that they do not matter. But for many owners of uteri, the conditions of their lives are what lead them to conclude that the pregnancy must be terminated. They can't wave a magic wand and make those disappear. Unconditional love is love no matter what. We who are not grappling with hard decisions around a pregnancy can afford some unconditional love for those of our sisters who are. We can let go of the judgmentalism, exercise acceptance, and offer moral support and a listening ear. Some who believe that life or personhood begins at conception may assert that unconditional love of the owner of the uterus is inconsistent with obtaining an abortion. But in the biblical tradition, some of the greatest divine love is accompanied by death and destruction. The flood in Genesis wiped out all animal life on earth except for the 2 breeders of each species carried on the ark. Shortly after Abraham covenanted with God to make his descendants a great nation, he was ordered to sacrifice his son Isaac. Abraham then tried to bargain with God for the lives of people living in the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, and God agreed that he would not destroy them, but then destroyed those cities anyway. God, said to be the source of love itself, does not hesitate to deal out death in the stories of the Bible. Here we come to the crux of the question: what is the point of having unconditional love, either from the divinity or from parents, if it does not prevent the powerful from committing death and destruction? It's a question I can't answer. I can only answer that nothing is assured in any realm. I've been very fortunate in my life to have had loving parents, and I still count myself lucky decades after their deaths. I can feel their unconditional love for me over my lifetime, as I hope my children and grandchildren can feel my love for them over theirs. None of this love has kept me from all adversity. I've had a few hard knocks, for love is not on the same plane as luck. My friends, what has happened this week has shaken me up severely. I preached this subject because I didn't know how I would answer the challenges we're facing, and I've now come to the end of this sermon, and I still don't. But I intend to make noise, and I intend to gather votes, because the unconditional love I feel for this country is based on the delicate balance that is maintained between the rights of the majority, as represented by the government, and the zone of individual privacy, which is protected from the actions of the majority. And of course, in the instance of abortion, the majority is actually in favor of choice. Under that protective umbrella of individual privacy, shelter not only the right to terminate a pregnancy, but the right to marry people of a different race, the right to marry people of the same sex, the right to make love to people we love, and ultimately the right to vote and have the votes fairly counted. These are rights worth fighting to protect. And if you agree, let's take counsel about what form of protest will be the most effective. May we all be thankful for the love that has visited us in our lives. And on this Mother's Day, may we be a source of love to others. Amen.
And now the offertory, Arabesque No. 1 by Claude Debussy, featuring Robert Winkley on piano. If you'd like to support the work of this church with a financial donation, you may write out a check to First Church in Boston and mail it to 66 Marlborough Street, 02116. You can also donate via text. Simply text the dollar amount, 5, 10, 20, etc., to 617-917-5610. You'll receive confirmation by email. Thank you.
Please be seated. You may join me in extinguishing the chalice with the words in your order of service. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Our closing hymn is number 298, Wake Now My Senses. Because of those who came before, we are. In spite of their failings, we believe. Because of and in spite of the horizons of their vision, we too dream. Let us go, remembering to praise, to live in the moment, to love mightily, and bow to the mystery. Amen. Blessed be.
Please feel free to join us live each Sunday at 66 Marlborough Street at the corner of Berkeley Street in Back Bay. If you would like more information about programs, services, or membership at First Church, please visit the website www.firstchurch.org or send an email to office@firstchurchboston.org. I'm Craig Hildreth, your announcer and broadcast engineer. Thank you so much for listening. We will now return you to the studios of WERS. This concludes our Sunday broadcast on Facebook. Thank you.